Sumimasen? Do you have some sake? No? Sumimasen? Do you have some sake? No? Sumimasen? Do you have some sake? Sumimasen? Do you have some sake?
Some sake, like this?
Oh! Enough. Good. Domo arigato, ushi wakamaru. Like water. Yasunobu-san. Ohayou gozaimasu.
おはようございます。
May I speak to these people here about Scrum?
Yes, please.
Good idea.
But this is my turn, I think.
What?
Okay, this is my turn.
Not with the background, no.
高い即興力を求められた。
Ohayou gozaimasu.
I have a sake. Okay.
Domo arigato, Chon-san. I am just a poor farmer, but I have, in my many years, been learning about Scrum. And what I want to talk to you about today is how you might learn Scrum. So, this is a short Scrum class. How many of you consult in Scrum, or teach Scrum, or are Scrum Masters? Because if you are a Scrum Master, you are the sensei, the teacher. And there is a group that has figured out how the pieces of Scrum fit together, so you can teach them as a system. And these are called Scrum patterns. And they take your team on a journey of becoming, a journey of enlightenment. There is a saying, Scrum is not something that you do. It is something that you are. And that is not right. Scrum is something you become. It is always a becoming. Scrum comes from Japan, and Japan has much literature and a great legacy about becoming as a people, as an individual, and in your journey through tools like Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. So what I would like to do today, as just a poor farmer, is tell you the story of my ox, my bull. I once had an ox, or I think I once had an ox, and then I could not find it. And I want to tell you the story of how I again found my ox, because it is also the story of how you will find your path to Scrum, and maybe how you will find yourself. So, this is a Scrum Patterns course. We want to ask, what is our journey into Scrum based on patterns? What is a good Scrum team? But more deeply, we want to ask, what is the way of nature of Zuran, the process, the way, the do by which water decides how to flow down a mountain, the way of nature, because this is the way of Scrum. It is not a set of practices, but of harmonizing and becoming. The other part of this is that to harmonize with your team, with your business, it's like harmonizing with nature, and to do that, you must be your true self. And the story of the 10 oxes is about finding not only the way, but finding your true self. And I want to take us on that journey. Those are the two purposes of my talk. Now, I was inspired by 4 people. One of them is Lao Tzu, who wrote classics in Oriental literature, and he very much inspired Christopher Alexanderson, who is in the middle, and Jeff Sutherland-son, who is on the right. Alexanderson was an architect and introduced the idea of patterns to the world, and we borrowed it in software. But his work, if you have read The Timeless Way of Building, reads like the Dokyo, the Tao Te Ching. He was very much inspired by Lao Tzu. And Jeff Sutherland is a Buddhist monk. He has spent time in a Buddhist monastery here in Japan, and they made him a monk. Scrum comes from Japan. And so I am very humble to be here in front of you to teach you about yourself and about becoming your true self. Now, you will have to help me today. And there will be times when I will ask you to stand up. So we all know about standing up in Scrum. It's called the Daily Scrum. And we stand up for 15 minutes. So just to practice standing up, please, everybody that can stand up, just stand up. And you may sit down again. So, as I say, I started just as a poor farmer, searching for my bull. As a software person, we had learned things in college, in our education, as a project manager, or in the method of our company about how to do things. And they taught us to work with and to become machines, rather than being in tune with the nature of ourselves and of others. So we would talk to marketing and sales rather than walk a mile in the shoes of our customer or live with the customer. Even some of us were agile, and we would have an on-site customer and make them live with us instead of us going to their place and living with them. We had not yet discovered Scrum, but we felt that something was missing. How many of you are at this stage right now? If you are at this stage, please stand up. I think because this is a Scrum gathering, there may not be many people who feel they are at this stage. But is there anybody? No, probably not. You are living, or we started living, in the mist. And we started searching for something better. We had this longing and an understanding that there could be something better than the mechanical way we were doing things, of a method, of following rules, of checking off fields on a spreadsheet as we would go through the steps of the process. We became lost in our cultural upbringing. I have been coming to Japan for about 25 years, since object-oriented days and pattern days, and now Scrum days. And I have seen some change, especially in the trust between managers and the people who work for them. But still, the Japanese culture is very hierarchical, and people usually do something because their boss tells them to do this, rather than being their true self. So we sometimes feel this longing for the true self. We are lost in the mist. The mist is our first pattern. It is where everything starts. And it is not bad. It is not good. It is just where you are. It is what is. Then one day, I saw the footprints of my lost bull. And I thought, aha, there is a bull. This was not my imagination. Or there is something better. I do not know what it is. But I have heard this word agile. Or I have heard this word Scrum. And maybe I should learn about it. Maybe I should go to the Scrum gathering and learn what Scrum is and become closer to what our company wants us to be. You might learn from a friend in another company or in some group in your own company that is already using Scrum. And you have hope that you can learn about it and see if it is useful for you. Why do we have Scrum? In Japan here, in many companies, on the wall, we see speedo, speedo, speedo. It is all about getting to market fast, and we want to be fast. We want profit, and Agile promises twice the product in half the time. How many of you are at this conference for that reason? You are just starting. You are curious. You are hopeful. And you have come to learn from your 400 colleagues here about Scrum. Anyone who just come to learn? Oh, stand up so people can see you. We need our exercise. Oh, good. Wow, look at this. This is fantastic. Thank you. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. And again, it is not good. It is not bad. It is just where you are. And you are in a good place, I think, to learn some good things. But what I want to do is take you beyond what you will hear here and to think with your true self about whether you can find that answer within your true self. Because that is the message that I am bringing you. Scrum is not something you will find in a guide on the web. It is not something you will find in a training course. It is not something that a certificate of certification will guarantee that you have. And I will explain more about this. Then, can you, perceiving the bull, you see the bull, you've seen it go around a corner, and you are excited. You have observed another Scrum team in your company or in a friend's company. And you might even join a Scrum team or be excited about these great claims of productivity of twice the product in half the time, and by its Japanese roots, and by its popularity in America. We have short meetings every day, meetings that will help communication and help us more effectively report to our project manager. Scrum Master. It's called Agile. And we can change anything, anytime, because we are Agile. And you are finding this as you join a Scrum team, and a lot of the constraints are removed. But you only have a dim vision of Scrum. You do what other people do. You maybe still do what your Scrum Master and product owner tell you. How many of you are at this stage in your progression? So, just one. Okay. It is not good. It is not bad. It is just where you are. Then, Tokogyu, you catch the bull. Maybe you go to a Scrum class, or maybe you hire a Scrum coach, and you learn that the product backlog is not requirements, but rather product increments. There are no requirements on a backlog. But now you have learned that. Whereas before, you were just attaching Agile names to the old concepts you knew as a project manager. You have always used user stories. And now you discover there are no user stories in Scrum. A user story is a requirement. And the product backlog is a product backlog, not a requirements backlog. So you start learning that Scrum is something different. You are starting to let go of the old project manager way of doing things. How do you learn these? Maybe through a pattern, because very few Scrum books or Scrum courses will tell you the deep structure of a team, of a product, and of a product backlog. So without this deep understanding, the why do we build a product backlog? We tend to do things the same way we did when we were project managers and running waterfall. But now we have captured the bull. We are certified. We have our certificate. So now we know. There are still stories, user stories there. They help the product owner understand what an end user wants. But then she translates them into product backlog items for the team. So you start to appreciate the importance of why. And it is no longer just following techniques or doing a checklist, because you have learned, you have captured the bull. How many of you are at this stage? Oh, there's a few. Please stand up. No, please stand up. Oh, wow. Good. A lot of you. Thank you. Tomoragato gozaimasu. It is not good. It is not bad. It is just where you are. So, for example, you learn about the Daily Scrum. The Daily Scrum is a pattern. It's something you build as a team. Every day, you build this collection of your team members. Here are some team members in Coplien doing their morning planning before they go to work. It's a daily Scrum. But why do we do the daily Scrum? What did you learn in your course? Or what do you remember from being a project manager? What the pattern says is that planning is important to reduce waste and prepare for success. In an agile environment, detailed plans don't last that long. Therefore, you should reevaluate your situation every day and replan the sprint. People believe many things about the Daily Scrum. Usually, they will believe one of these 4 things. Why did we put the Daily Scrum in Scrum? To ensure that the team finishes the sprint backlog? To report progress to the Scrum Master? To answer the 3 questions? Or to replan the work until tomorrow? So just, how many of you think it is 1? Ichi. How many think it is 2? How many think it is 3? And how many think it is 4? Oh, you have been well trained. Very good. Give yourselves a hand. Everybody in my classes will usually answer either 2 or 3 because it is what they have experienced in the past. We need to report to the Scrum Master because they fill the role that the project manager used to fill. And even in some interpretations of Scrum today, we will find them. But if you understand the why, which we talk about in the pattern, it is the agile core of Scrum development to self-organize and to replan the work of the sprint for the next 24 hours. So now you have learned that. You feel like you know a lot. You understand the why, and in your retrospective, you start using the why to make changes to your process, but always making sure that you follow the Scrum Guide. But there is something, a little voice in your ear, which is your instinct, and it reminds you of that first oct, when you felt there was something missing. Because just following the Scrum Guide or following a book still leaves you with the same kind of feeling that you had those many bowls ago. So patterns recognize that there is not just one Scrum. That what Scrum is a scientific laboratory where you can try things and you are allowed to fail. How many of you fail more than 50% of your sprint? How many of you fail less than 50% of your sprint? You should fail about 50% of your sprints. What you take into a sprint is based on your average velocity. Half of your sprints will do better, and half of your sprints will do worse. If you are not failing 50% of your sprints, you are lying. You are cheating. You are cooking the books. Scrum is all about controlled failure. A lot of Scrum comes from the Toyota production system. And in the engineer's manual for the Toyota production system, it says, there is no Kaizen without Hansei. Scrum is about collective regret. We have let down our team. We have let down our customers. We can do better. How can we do Kaizen at the team level or Kaikaku at the management level in order to be better? But if we do not let things fail, there will be no incentive to do Kaizen and Kaikaku. So this is about failure. we start to learn that we can be agile with our process framework. I think most of us understand that our product can be agile, that we change them all the time. How many of you use Microsoft Windows? Don't you just love it when Microsoft sends you an update and says, we are about to change your software. Please stop working on this program because we are agile and we have changed things and we are going to make the world better for you. Don't you love this? It's called continuous delivery. And that is what Agile is. Agile is not the solution. The problem with most companies is that they do not have constancy of purpose. Agile is the problem. The solution is what we learn from the Toyota production system. Being open to change, like replanning for emergent requirements in the Daily Scrum, of course, is important. And there, Agile is important. But Scrum is a discipline of planning and then giving ourselves permission to change the plan. But there is much planning in Scrum. And so, at this point, if you are saying we are just going to be agile and change everything, you will lose your customers who do not want to be interrupted every day. So you learn about the product backlog. Like I said, it is not ordered by priority, but in the order of delivery. And you have to make a decision about what order you will deliver product increments. Now you can change that every sprint in negotiation with your business and your customer. But what you are changing is what you deliver. It's a list of deliverables, not of requirements. Not of user stories, but of product increments. And you change it every sprint. Maybe you are running 1-hour sprints. Has anybody come that far in their Scrum journey?
Now 50.
Whack! So you start to learn. Again, the patterns go back to the experts, to Jeff Sutherland's son, to Gabriella Benefield's son, to my sensei. My sensei is here somewhere. Where is Hiro Harada-san? You're hiding back there. He is my sensei. Talking with these people and understanding the roots of the Toyota production system of Scrum? What was the vision before people started misunderstanding it and putting it into Scrum exams and books and guides? Then finally, you come to kind of a piece. Kigyu Kika. You're riding the bull home. There is sweet music in the air. The trees become alive before you, says the poem. The corporation accepts that you do Scrum. They are sending people to courses and conferences. We are a real egoless team. And it feels more like a team. It is not about me. It is about us as a team. I start to understand how the parts of Scrum fit together. Because you can really only understand that if you know the why. And if you let it affect your true self. The patterns are designed like puzzle pieces, so they can tell you what practices in Scrum depend on others and how they will make your team more whole and move your team to what Christopher Alexander calls mume no shitsu, the nameless quality. In the classic literature, Lao Tzu says, the Do, or the Tao, the way that can be named, is not the true name. So it's not ROI, that's a name. It's not velocity, that's a name. It's not happiness, that's a name. It's mume no shitsu. And you start to tap in to a new part of yourself as an individual and as a team that starts to wonder, how could I ever just believe all those things I read in the book and believe that I could do this mechanically or by going to a course or going to a conference? It's a system, not just a collection of practices like the Daily Scrum and retrospective. Maybe it is no longer the Scrum Guide. Jeff Sutherland-san runs a Scrum where he has the whole team start a sprint on Monday, and they work directly from the product backlog. They take a product backlog item, they quickly discuss it and build it, and then move on to the next one. It's a 1-week sprint. On Tuesday, the same team starts another sprint on the same product. On Wednesday, another sprint. On Thursday, another sprint. And on Friday, another sprint. Is this Scrum? Who's Scrum? Jeff Scrum? Scrum.org Scrum? Scrum Alliance Scrum? One of my favorite Japanese words is mu, which the Zen master will use if you have just asked a meaningless question. Is this Scrum? Mu. It's the wrong question. What is the right question? What is the right question for you? Oh, ROI. No. 無名の質. How about the true self? How about the becoming? Truth. I believe in truth. In vino veritas. But truth is a process. It is not something that stands still. We are always learning. And Scrum is a learning framework. And patterns are a framework for teaching ourselves Scrum. Patterns build something. They tell us how to put parts together, like puzzle pieces. What we are building in Scrum, if we are a Scrum Master, is two things. The most important is the Scrum team. If you are a Scrum Master, that is your number one product. Because the team embodies the process. Toyota says, build the right process, and you will build the right product. And of course, the product that you deliver to the market is the second outcome or output of the team. But both of these are things that we build. We can draw pictures of them. And often, as engineers, we will gather around the whiteboard or the flip chart and draw pictures to communicate with each other. Those pictures have a geometry, like an architecture has a geometry. And this was Christopher Alexander's contribution. By the way, is Nakano-sensei here? I did not know if he would be here. Nakano-sensei runs the Center for Environmental Structure, Christopher Alexander's company, here in Japan. They built a school called Aishin Gakuen, which is, 40 kilometers to the west or northwest of Tokyo. We are also building something in Scrum. And we should think of building it one step at a time. I think if there is one thing I want you to remember from this talk, and to look at all the other talks and sessions for the next 3 days, we talk about Agile for our product. Are we Agile in changing our team? Are we Agile in changing our process? Do we do it one step at a time? Or do we have a large framework that we bring in and just install the framework? It should be Agile, but not just for the product, but for the organization, for the company as well. Some of these changes are big. When I teach Scrum, I tell people the first thing you need to do is fire all the managers. There are no managers managing Scrum development teams. Development teams manage themselves. They manage product. The product owner manages product. Now, there is still management. They manage the company they start new products. Maybe they have to kill a product. Killing products is something we do very bad because we are agile. And killing a product is not incremental. How many products has Google killed in the past 5 years? About 35. How many products have you killed? Well, no, your product owner or product manager does not want to kill the product. It's like killing one of their own children. So management is there to make the difficult decision, the kaikaku, and freeing developers to be self-organized. Again, we make this clear in the pattern, and we have learned this from you, from very successful Japanese corporations. But there is much misunderstanding about this. So Agile is about doing things. We're always doing things. We're doing TDD. So the amount of code that we have is half tests that we never deliver. Half of what we build and evolve and maintain is muda. This is Agile because it's about doing things. It's about running the tests. Scrum is about building things. The focus is on something we build, a gift that we give to our stakeholders that has value. If we could do that by just doing nothing, by just waving a magic wand, that would be an ideal world. It is not about doing. It's about being. It's about becoming. So as we are doing, and we try harder, we push. This is not Scrum. This is not patterns. This is not Buddhism. The way of Buddhism is Wu Wei. The way of Buddhism is to let things flow. Suran. Nature. Letting nature have its course. It will control you. And you can become one with it to harmonize it, rather than trying to control it or control your customers, telling them what they are going to use. So what does Scrum build? A product? No, there is nothing in Scrum about building products. Scrum builds a process that you use to build products. So Scrum is about building the process and the organization. Something that tells you how to build product is a method. And Scrum is not a method. It is a framework for building your process, because that is more about the true self of a team and becoming than if you just focus on the product. So we are looking inside of ourselves rather than always looking at the process. Now, the process builds the product. And we have two collections of patterns. We have a collection that tells how to put development teams together and how they relate to product owners, how they relate to management, and how they relate to the market. And then we have a value stream, which is how products flow through the process. So they flow from the product owner's vision all the way to the market. So both of these are things of which we can draw a picture. And we can talk about patterns like a product roadmap, a product backlog. The slices of this river are sprints. The team and the product owner are along the banks of the river. The springs of the river are a vision, requirements, funding, tools. And we know how to build a cross-functional, self-organizing, self-selecting, co-located team. That's Scrum. Now, we all know that Scrum is 5 events, 3 artifacts, and 3 roles. And it sounds very simple. And people miss the subtleties. But if we bring together 20 of the world experts on Scrum, like Jeff Sutherland-san, Mike Beadle-san, Gabriella Benefield-san, Hiro Harada-san, and say, what is Scrum and what works? Just to build the value stream is something like 56 patterns. And I like to ask people, which of these patterns do you have? And they can check, and where they are, they are. It is not good. It is not bad. It is just where the team is. But this is a learning roadmap. And there is no prize for the most patterns. If you read a pattern, and you read the problem, and the forces, and you start getting excited, saying, I know what the solution will be, and then the solution is something else. What should you do? Follow your heart. Follow your true self. A pattern is not there to tell you who you are. It is something to help you explore yourself as an individual, as a team, as a company, to tap into what you were born with, to recognize solutions and the mume no shitsu, rather than some consultant with a book coming in and telling you that they think they know better than you do. It is your true self. That is Scrum. Anything else is a method. Here are the patterns for building the product organization. And we are thinking in wholeness. These patterns all affect each other. The product backlog is meaningless without a product owner. Again, we need to understand why. We need to make these our own. We need to find them in our hara, in our deepest self. Not just cite the book and use the book to beat up somebody else and saying, this must be right because it's in a book. It must be right because you believe it, not just because you have read it in some method. You need to make them your own and find your true self as a business, as a team, and as an individual. Patterns are small, so we can do an experiment, try a pattern, and if it doesn't work, try something else. Scrum is all about controlled failure. And they are subject to feedback. So that is Agile. And we are using Agile to shape the process and team rather than just the product. Because you build the right product only if you build the right process. So this is mume no hinshitsu. It's the nameless quality. Wholeness, beauty. Wholeness, beauty, they are just names. They are just words. It's not about certification. Because certification defines a point in space and time. And in being Agile, we are ever changing. It is Kaizen mind. We are ever getting better. And if we are following some certified standard, then we are not changing. Christopher Alexander talks about a team that is alive. This is a very good Western metaphor. Does your team feel alive? Is there a lot of energy? A great Japanese word is ba. Does your team, when they get together, have the feeling of immense potential for energy, for doing great things? If your Scrum team does not feel like that, you probably should do some Hansei and find out why it does not feel like that. It should be a thrill. It should be about passion. It should be about doing great things, not ROI. This was always Jeff Sutherland's vision. And I could go more into that. And I could do that over some nice sake sometime. I think Kyun-san and I have talked about this over sake many times. So, how many of you have seen a beautiful organization? Isn't it a wonderful thing? Why are the rest of you not raising your hands? That's pretty sad. Because Scrum exists to make your organization beautiful. This mume no hinshitsu. And if it isn't that, you are not there yet. And it takes Kaizen and Kaikaku to get there. It's small, simple things like good housekeeping. How many of you know 5S? I thought all Japanese knew 5S. At least, it comes from Japanese housewives originally, right? My wife, Getsu-san, has learned from this very famous Japanese woman about rolling your clothes and putting them away instead of putting them in a shelf. So her closet is very neat. Her closet. This is good housekeeping. Is all of your code checked in every night? Do all of the tests pass every night? Have you disabled some tests because they don't pass? Eventually, somebody has to clean the dishes and put things away. So we suggest a daily rhythm of cleaning up. Swarming. The entire team works as one mind. So the entire team works on one product increment at a time, or one PBI at a time. If you split up the team into sub-teams, they cannot handle dependencies between them, and it destroys teamwork. This comes from the Toyota work cell. If you cannot have team work on everything at once, but a product has to wait between stages of development, then there is inventory. And you can track inventory using something that in the West is called Kanban. Kanban was a technique invented by Taiichi Ohno, and it's something you should be ashamed of because you have inventory rather than having teamwork and flow. But yet, there are Scrum consultants selling Kanban as though it were a good thing. This is not right. This does not understand the why. There are many frameworks, many techniques that build on the fantasies of old project managers and old managers, because they don't want to fire all the managers. They still want to micromanage development. And I am sure there are many people at this conference representing such frameworks and such approaches. And it is good money because big companies really want this right now. And the managers have a lot of money to spend. So if you are a consultant selling these, they will buy them. Is that your true self? It's good money. Swarming is about teamwork and small teams. So the whole team works together on one PBI at a time. So a Scrum pattern organization is a lie. Scrum, like you learn in training, is the DNA. That's like the Scrum Guide. The patterns are the process of life. How do things come together? How do things live? How do things interact with each other and their environment? How do they grow? How do they become differentiated? The organization grows in response to its maturity and changes in the environment. So patterns are the plan for the unfolding of the DNA. They are a good vision of what it means for a team to flower and blossom into a Scrum team. And maybe you only use 10 patterns. We have 94. They are suggestions to inspire you. Maybe you will get to the point where the patterns master you, and you are in harmony with them. It is not I who have applied them. It is Wu Wei. Wu Wei is the Zen concept of the way of non-action, of harmonizing with my environment and following the lead of where the market wants to go, of where my instinct is taking me, and where the team collectively figures out will be the the path of greatest value. It is not about master planning. It is about every day responding to changes in this Wu Wei way of looking at things. This is becoming one's true self. In order for a team to work as a team, the individuals must be centered. They must be centered in their hara. How many of you have progressed to this stage of Scrum? Well, then you are at the right conference. It is not good. It is not bad. You are where you are. And this is exciting because you have a great path in front of you. And then you meditate and you realize there is no Scrum. Scrum is just some words on something called the Scrum Guide. The way the world works and the way we interact in the world of work is from our hara, interacting with each other in harmony, finding our path together, not reading a script from something called the Scrum Guide. Now, the Scrum Guide is excellent training wheel. Scrum is the gate through which we pass on the way to enlightenment. So it's like Picasso, before he started learning how to do expressionist painting, learned conventional painting. So you learn the normal rhythm of the daily Scrum, daily replanning, of ordering the product backlog, of having roles that will own product and own the implementation and own process. But what Takeuchi-san and Nonaka-sensei found is the great organizations are ones where everybody is doing everything all the time. How many know the origin of the word Scrum? Which is? Rugby? Sashimi. He studied processes in many Japanese companies like Honda, NEC, Canon. He studied the Canon one-shot, and he found that in highly innovative products, everybody was doing everything all the time. A little testing, a little analysis, a little development in that order. And if you were to make these as a Gantt chart or a PERT chart, the tasks would be overlapping. They would not fit. The overlapping tasks reminded him of pieces of sashimi on a bowl of rice. And he said, what is the human equivalent of sashimi? What is overlapping people? What is this? A Scrum. どうもありがとうございます。It's about harmony between people whose work is overlapping. There is no Scrum. There is only the mume no hensitsu within you. And Scrum is the training wheels that get you to that point. And eventually, there is no me. There is no Scrum. All there is the world. And I view myself as part of a system, of systems thinking, where I am just one atom in a large system of interacting parts that is fighting entropy and increasing value. This is transcendence. At this point, you are through the gate. You can leave Scrum behind. It is training wheels. And now you can trust your instinct. And you can start to be your true self. How many of you have been at this stage? I believe you. We had a great chat last night. This causes you to think in terms of larger systems. Where do you learn leadership from? Well, both my wife, Getsu-san down there, and I think you, we did not talk last night. We can learn leadership from wolves, from horses. We can look at nature. And we, as humans, think that we are somehow special and apart from nature and are in control. No, nature is in control. Nature is the Tao. It is the Do. It is the way. And what Scrum is a framework for us harmonizing with that. But you need to get to this point to see yourselves as part of that system. It isn't you controlling the customer or them controlling you. There is no us and them in Scrum. There's only us. So we're going to learn from wolves and horses rather than politics and psychology. Niteen Suishu. Oh, I know that guy. Scrum isn't about building a product, but building the process. Just as the great strength of Toyota is how they design their assembly lines, not how the workers work at work cell. Scrum borrows a lot from how the workers work at work cell. But you still need to design the process. That's where the quality is. This gets into a much deeper theory of geometry called the theory of center. And we will be talking about it at Pattern Course next week here in Tokyo. But part of the key, which I can say here in a keynote, and we don't often say in a class, is you understand people first by understanding yourself. Each true self is somehow unique. It isn't about getting you all to homogeneously fit some process or some checklist or to adhere to the Scrum Guide. Each one of you should find your way. But remember, you finding your way is not different than you working with your team. You are one mind. This is about trust. It's about love. It's about harmony. I. About energy. Ki. The way of harmony and energy. Aikido. Any Aikido practitioners here? Jeff Sutherland was an Aikido practitioner. I am an Aikido practitioner. That's what Scrum is. And eventually, when you are 8th Q, 8th degree black belt, you're Bruce Lee. You don't need a book. You do not need belt. You are free. You are free to implement the quality. And that quality is eternal. Everyone wants a part of themselves to be eternal. That's what good Scrum is. It's not about projects. It's about products. And it's about yourself. You need to understand why. And from the why, find your true self.